just briefly, the cabinet, as well as directors, principals, and so forth, have been working very diligently for many hours since the defeat of the budget on May 21st, or that is not really the defeat of the budget, but the failure of the budget to receive a 60% majority, to come about with a revised budget plan or options for the Board of Education to consider under a revised budget plan for the June 18th vote. Last night, we made a presentation that was really based on considering how we can best present a revised budget that has three significant goals associated with it. That is, to maintain as much of the comprehensive academic program as possible for our students to have as many of the opportunities that they have now to continue to move forward. To maintain our ability to provide support services to students in needs, because it's very important that we consider that we do not want one of the consequences of a failure of the budget to receive 60% of some of the revisions that need to be made to be a loss in our student achievement or a reduction in student achievement. We also approached those revisions with the very significant goal of seeing if there was any way at all possible that we can maintain full-day kindergarten. And then also we needed to approach that revision by making sure that we could come up with a plan that maintained the fiscal stability of the district moving forward so that it could continue to react appropriately to unexpected expenses, unexpected losses in revenue, and to continue to gain enough fund balance and equity to help offset spikes in tax levies moving forward, and to try to help flatten some of that. So we took the time to really look at some of the assumptions that had been made in the original budget presentations and preparations in terms of what would happen if the budget failed to reach the supermajority, to consider if, based on the fact that it's actually a number of months later, was there any new information? Was there a different way to look at some of the assumptions that had been made? So we came at it from that place. And then the other thing that we did is we took the time to go back to the line-by-line budget, as one might expect, and see if there are any additional areas that we can consider for additional reductions or alternate reductions. And we did that and presented a significant list of revisions that would be able to bring the districts to the cap at 3.14. And those included reductions to half-day kindergarten at that point in time, art and music, athletics, extracurricular activities, secondary staffing and elementary staffing, secondary summer school reduction, custodial reductions, clerical reduction, reductions to the professional development budget, reductions to the overtime budget, reductions or reorganization to the supervision area, reductions to the travel and conference budget, reductions to the part of the budget for library books, reduction to the amount of money put aside for the tax certiorari in light of the fact that the information suggests that the county has been less successful there, moving that forward, reductions to operations and maintenance, meaning the amount of money that we felt we needed to have set aside for electric, water, fuel, reduction to supplies, workers' compensation, continuing education program, insurance payments, the youth program, summer guidance counselors, medical insurance payments, and payments to the teachers' retirement system. Because we had a goal of getting to 3.14, which would require $3,343,049 of reductions to get to that place. We came up with proposed reductions that equal $3,122,049, which is short of that goal. But then what we did is we looked to the East Rockaway revenue. We know and had discussed in many of the budget sessions that we were receiving revenue from East Rockaway to our advantage. Of course, we did not wish on East Rockaway the fact that they would not be able to be in their buildings and had to come to us. But they came to us and we received rent from them for a period of time equal to about $263,000. Originally in the budget proposals, we would have preferred to see that money roll forward into the next year's budget unassigned, attached to a specific purpose to help continue to build this fund equity and to help to continue to cushion the districts against unexpected expenses or unexpected decreases in revenue. But we felt at this point in time, based on our new perspective, that it was really most appropriate to assign that money to trying to offset and helping us reach a goal of 3.14. Again, why I keep going to the 3.14 is that is the highest levy possible. That would require a simple majority, so that is the tax cap, so to speak. So we then also had recent information where Nassau BOCES had an EBLAR reserve that needed to be reduced based on advice and direction they received from the state controller. Each of the component districts in Nassau County, having originally contributed to Nassau BOCES, and that's where they found the money, had the money to create the EBLAR reserve, then it was determined that they owed that money back to the schools. But this was not money that we were specifically in a position to have anticipated, so we've been calling it unbudgeted revenue. The reason is because there was really not clarity as to when BOCES would get the chance to do this, what form it would take, how BOCES was going to come up with a formula for how it should be distributed among the districts. So recently, though, we have learned that Baldwin would receive $517,000. So we looked at the revenue from East Rockaway and the revenue being generated by the Nassau BOCES EBLAR, and then went into that 3.14 budget and found ourselves in a place where we could absolutely meet the goal of coming to a 3.14 budget but restoring full-day kindergarten. So we have a proposed budget that comes in at 3.14 and includes full-day kindergarten. Now, taking a moment to recognize the fact that the board might be asked to continue to pierce the cap and how they might go about doing that, we felt it was obliged to show the board how that might work, although there is significant additional risk associated with choosing to try to pierce the cap. What we did is we looked at the list of cuts that we had proposed and said which cuts on that list would a community most likely try to get behind or feel valuable for restoration. So in addition to the full-day kindergarten, that would be athletics, art, music, and extracurricular activities. So we looked at what budget would it take to restore those things. And that is a 4.1% budget, but that is a budget that is above 3.14, so it would require a 60% supermajority once again. We had shown the board what that would look like. Then lastly, we took the time to consider reminding everybody what a contingency budget would look like. Because if either any budget that the board chooses to put up at this point in time fails to reach either the appropriate, receive the appropriate number of votes, the district would find itself on contingency. Contingency means that we would be limited to a tax levy increase of 0%. 0%. No increase in the tax levy whatsoever. So what does that mean? That would mean every single one of the cuts, that is $3,343,049 worth of cuts that I just talked about to get to the 3.14 budget, every single one of those, plus an additional $2,717,882 of cuts on top of that. How would that be achieved? That means a contingency budget, as compared to a 3.14 budget, would mean there would be no athletic program. Not simply reductions to the athletic program, but no athletic program. It means that there would not simply be reductions to the extracurricular activity program, there would be no extracurricular activity program. This would have to come to zero. Then the remaining money would really need to come from what we say is about the full-time equivalent, or the equivalent of about 25 additional teachers being excess. That's the equivalent of. It wouldn't necessarily mean exactly that number of bodies because of how it would be distributed and so forth, but the equivalent of 25 additional salaries. Where would that come from? If we had to access 25 additional people, or the equivalent thereof, that would mean kindergarten would fully be on the table again for a reduction or elimination. We would have to reduce art and music to state minimums. State minimums for art and music means you do not need art and music teachers at the elementary schools, because art and music, when you go to state minimums, means that it can be taught by the classroom teacher, because the regulations in elementary school just say it should be taught. It doesn't say how. and it does not require art and music teachers at these levels. At the middle school, it requires just a half a credit of music be earned over the course of 7th and 8th grade. So all the additional music that's provided in the performing groups and so forth would no longer be required. And then at the high school, the requirements for art and music is 1 credit of art and or music over the course of the entire 4 years, 9 through 12. And certainly we have significantly more than that available to our students. We would have to look at that. The other thing, depending on what the decisions were with regard to kindergarten, the only other way to achieve that number of additional reductions in teaching positions would be to look at increasing class size again, recognizing that we're at 25, 28 right now. 25 for the primary grades, 28 for the intermediate grades, and then of course it would also mean that we would have to take a very serious look at the electives that are offered, most notably at the high school, to consider achieving those additional 20